If we don't make reading fun again, we're going to stop reading. And if we stop reading, we're going to lose access to perspective, empathy, entire universes of knowledge that humanity has fought so hard to preserve. Our information diets are going to become all sugar, no protein. And I think the biggest thing is that we risk learning from the mistakes of people that have come before us. At some point, reading quietly turned into work, and somewhere along the way, we inherited a set of rules around how reading is supposed to look. And most of them don't serve us anymore. One of my personal missions I've decided is to get more people reading again. I don't really care what they read as long as they're engaging with the act of reading. And so don't think of the following that I'm sharing as rules. They're simply principles that have become defaults for me over the years that I keep coming back to. And you're free to break all of them. The first principle is to treat your bookshelf like a bookstore. This is the single shift that has made reading more fun for me. So we are used to basically reading things cover to cover, right? You get a book, and because you bought it, you feel guilty, and it sits on your nightstand for the next year, even though you can't get past the first couple pages. When you're in a bookstore, you're discovering, you're browsing, you're not trying to finish things cover to cover before you leave. You're trying to find what you like, find what gives you a charge. And so this allows you to pick several books off the shelf, open to a random page, and wait till something grabs you and pulls you in. And then once that charge fades away, flip to another page or open up a different book. What I love about this is it makes you tap in to what you're interested in right now in this moment versus something you decided long ago and that is causing you to resist reading altogether because you're like, oh, if I read, it has to be this thing and the next page and the next page and the next page, versus I can just pick something random and open to the middle. I don't even have to start from the beginning. It's a shock to your system because the rules, we just have not been taught that way, but I encourage you to try this one. It's a game changer. The second principle is to quit bad books for now. There's this notion that if, an author can't keep your attention for a couple of pages, that it's their fault. And I disagree with that because there are plenty of books that at the time I opened them and even got them, I wasn't ready to receive it. Timing really matters. But 10 years later, I revisit that same book, or I've sold several books, right, that I didn't think I was going to touch again. And then 10 years later, I buy those same books again and I fall in love with them. So at the time that I picked some of these things up, I'm not ready to receive them. This can even happen on a moment by moment basis, right? Something I decided I want to read yesterday morning may not be the right thing I want to tap into, today evening, right? I might be in a different mood. And so remember that just because a book is something you're putting away right now doesn't mean it's a waste or you're never going to touch it again. You're just quitting it for now. And if that scares you, remember that there's no award that you're getting for finishing books. The third principle is that reading happens in seconds over hours. Whenever I begin reading, I always romanticize this idea of having long, uninterrupted sessions for hours on end. And I may be able to pull that off sometimes, but most of the time that's not the case, right? Instead of waiting for the perfect block of time, I hunt for ideas that will stick with me because scattered seconds throughout the day add up much faster than the hours we keep postponing. The fourth principle is that curiosity is your compass. As kids, we're told what to read, and as adults, I feel like we forget that the best part is getting to choose. So let your genuine curiosity lead the way. First, you're going to get in touch with it in the first place. And, everybody, if they followed this, genuinely what they're interested in, what kind of pulls and grabs them, we would all be reading different things. We're not all going to be gravitating towards the New York Times bestseller list, right? There are going to be things that you chase after that the next person, would not. And that's a beautiful thing. The fifth principle is to attach your reading to a project. So if pure curiosity is too overwhelming for you, one of the ways to ground this immediately is, if there's a problem you're trying to solve. So like I'm trying to get better at communication at work or with negotiating. And guess what? The First Minute is a great book. The Never Split the Difference is one that I might go to. And so you kind of feel more drawn to that instead of just approaching the whole subject loosely overall. An example of this for me personally is surgery. I'm not a surgeon, but I'm interested in how surgeons think. So I don't go and pick up Surgery for Dummies, right? What I do is I search for a book that's written by a surgeon who has practiced and, engaged with these ideas for years. And it allows me to live through their world for a couple hours. So think of those kinds of things, because projects give curiosity direction without killing it. Principle number 6 is to find books that become theme songs. So the same way that you have a playlist or a certain song that you might like to put you into a certain state, you want to treat some books the same way. Now, audiobooks are not my main method of consumption. I mostly consume physical books, but there are a few that I have gotten in multiple formats, especially, an audiobook, because it's just the act of letting the ideas seep in, right? It's letting that song take me to a certain place. And so the two books that serve that purpose for me now and have for a couple years at this point are Mastery and Peak. These are the two books that whenever I put them on, I always get something new from it, or I hear the right thing at the right time, and it kind of is just like hearing my favorite song that would allow me to squeeze a couple extra reps when I'm working out. So think about what those theme songs might be for you and curate them the same way that you would a playlist. The 7th principle is to build a library. And the beautiful part is that the act of building a library turns reading into a long-term project. You constantly have this eye out now for things that you'd be proud of on your shelf, right? And it's a physical reminder of the worlds that you want access to. What I love about a personal library is that if you follow the curiosity rule, we're all going to end up with different bookshelves. We're all going to have a different collection of items. And that is a wonderful thing, because remember, there are thousands and thousands and thousands and maybe even millions of books out there. And we're not going to be able to read all of them in our lifetime. And so the couple hundred or a couple thousand that you are able to get to, if you're lucky, are going to inherently turn into a unique collection, right? Especially if we don't all just go after, what's on the New York Times bestseller list. We're going to collect things that are, unique thoughts, right? And over time, you're going to have a more unique perspective because you're consuming more unique things, right? Not the same videos and feeds that everyone else is consuming, not the same, mainstream books that everyone else is, but things that are very aligned with your curiosity that, allow you to have fun and keep going. When something is fun, you're more likely to keep doing it. And so a library is a project that I think can get you in that mode and be a physical reminder every time, you look at it. There's a line from Papyrus by Irene Vallejo that I come back to often. The books in the library contain all possible combinations of 22 letters and 2 punctuation marks. In other words, all that can be imagined or expressed in every language, whether remembered or forgotten. Somewhere on one of the shelves, the chronicle of your death can be found, and the story of the future in meticulous detail. That's what reading really is, access. The final principle is that there are no principles. Break all of these. Remember that reading is a space that belongs to you. What kills the fun isn't the reading itself. It's the invisible rules that we're still obeying, even though they clearly aren't working for us anymore. So I hope this was useful. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe wherever you're at. That helps a ton. But I appreciate you hanging out, and I will see you on the next one.